turn of the century. A running river of immigrants pouring toward Ellis Island.
O veni sona di la montanella, l'ulupo si mangia la pecorello, mamma. Hush you by, don't you cry, go to sleepy little baby.
Das Ziegel es gefahren handeln.
Today is born out of yesterday, and there's no birth without pain. Spring 1901. 16 years old, coming to America with 5 words of English.
My name is Zina Gurevich. Impossible language, I'll never learn it. My name is Zina Gurevich. My name is...
In the old country, I worked like an animal. And even before my children are born, the mark is on them. Animal. Before God, I swear my children will not live as I have lived.
Freedom doesn't come like a bird on the wing, doesn't come down like the summer rain. Freedom, freedom is a hard-won thing. You've got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for it. And every generation got to win it again. Pass it on to your children, mother. Pass it on to your children, brother. You've got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for it. Pass it on to your children. Pass it on.
The huge cavern of the reception hall at Ellis Island. Immigrants jammed together, bewildered, fearful, milling around the harassed inspectors.
New arrivals scheduled for examination will present themselves with their documents. Find the line matching the letter on your tag.
Name?
Avrum Bialik.
Place of birth?
Odessa.
How much money you got?
No understand.
Money, dinero. How much money?
We've got 5,000 to process today, so let's keep these lines moving. You got exactly 2 minutes to ask him 32 questions and finish health inspection. Keep an eye out for TB. We're getting a lot of it lately.
Name?
Kasimir Sienkiewicz.
Spell it.
Please?
Skip it. We'll make it Simpson.
Please, God, let nothing go wrong. Let them not notice the baby's runny nose. Let them take us into America.
Taking the ferry across the harbor. The great stone profile of New York City rising against the sky.
Why do you keep asking me what it's going to be like? I told you 1,000 times. The streets paved with gold and the houses all marble. Yeah, even the toilet.
Aye, is this a country? Golden America. Learn, study, pay attention. Keep your eyes open, you hear? This is Golden America, where millionaires grow on trees like little apples.
But the twisted, teeming streets where the immigrants went to live were a long way from Fifth Avenue. Another world. The Lower East Side. A jungle of broken sidewalks, gutters lined with pushcarts, and the air raucous with peddlers, housewives and kids screaming in 20 tongues. Official New York City Housing Survey, 1905.
We find it difficult to convey conditions in the new immigrant neighborhoods. Darkness and dampness and dirt and discomfort and disease. diphtheria, and death.
Mulberry Street, 17 of us in 4 rooms. Uncle Antonio from Naples, Aunt Bianca and the kids sleeping in the parlor. If I ever get a boyfriend, where can we go to hold hands? Into the park with the pigeons.
Stay at home in a suffocating tenement kitchen and help make artificial flowers, thread needles, and sew on buttons.
12 hours a day. Mama makes 50 cents. I make a dime. Louis makes a nickel.
Immigrant kids starting work at the age of 5. Immigrant parents sewing the nation's coats, cobbling its shoes, blasting tunnels, building bridges, putting up skyscrapers. Laying down track for the westbound train, stacking up timber in the state of Maine, digging out coal in the West Virginia hills, hammering steel in the Pittsburgh mills. Immigrants from Austria and Italy, immigrants from Riga on the Baltic Sea, green-eyed Slovaks, blue-eyed Swedes, Irishmen from Limerick, Englishmen from Leeds. 6-day week and a 12-hour day, and it's welcome, boys, to the USA. $1 a day for a factory hand, and it's welcome, ladies, to the promised land. Immigrants and the sons of immigrants, putting down roots, hanging on. Stubborn as the tree that pushes its way up through the rock. Acrobats and clowns, rascals and lovers, builders and dreamers, leaving their signature on the cities. From Bratislava and Budapest, from Calabria and County Cork they came, dreaming of gold in the streets, and finding no miracles, they made their own. The miracle of friendship, the miracle of laughter, the miracle of the generations. The miracle of learning.
Listen, you want to hear the presidents? George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson.
Professor Genius, what else did you learn?
Daniel Webster, quote, "Justice is the great interest of man on earth."
From your mouth to God's ears.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Golden America, half dream and half nightmare.
When I die, don't bury me at all. Hang me up on the spool room wall. Place a bobbin in my hand so I can keep on working in the promised land. I got the blues, I got the blues, I got the Winsboro cotton mill blues. I got the blues, I got the blues, I got the Winsboro cotton mill blues. Lordy, Lordy, schooling's hard. You know and I know, don't have to tell. You work for Tom Watson, gotta work like hell.
2 million children in the mills and the mines. 6 million grown-ups unemployed.
Why hire a man for $1 when you can hire a kid for a dime?
A professor in Chicago came up with a few statistics.
An American family cannot adequately survive on less than $900 a year. The average working man earns about $400.
A slow understanding dawning in the mind of a cotton mill girl in Lawrence, a steel worker in Pittsburgh, a buttonhole maker on the Bowery, a coal miner in Kentucky.
When the Union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. But what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? For the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever.
In the early 1900s, New York City boasted the largest clothing market in the nation and the most dismal sweatshops. The Brotherhood of Tailors struggled to improve conditions. A painful uphill battle, strikes flaring and flickering out. Worn, stubborn clothing workers, nurturing a tradition of militant labor going back to the Philadelphia printers, who formed a union before Washington was president. in the bleak cotton mill cities of Massachusetts and New Jersey, in the gaunt coal patches along Monongahela in the Allegheny, in the desolate company towns of Colorado, Illinois, West Virginia, a fever of demonstrations, of parades and protests.
Hold the fort, for we are coming. Union men, be strong. Side by side we'll battle onward. Victory will come.
As spokesman for the mine owners, I assure you the rights and interests of the laboring man will be protected and cared for not by the labor agitator, but by the Christian man to whom God in his infinite wisdom has given control of the property interests of this country.
Meaning the coal barons and the steel barons, meaning the company police and the state militia, strikebreakers and hired gunmen. In those early days of the century, if you carried a union card in your pocket, it could mean a jail sentence, a beating, a broken head.
Freedom doesn't come like a bird on the wing, doesn't come down like the summer rain. Freedom, freedom is a hard-won thing. You've got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for it. And every generation got to win it again. Pass it on to your children, mother. Pass it on to your children, brother.
Came to Chicago, green off the boat, 1910. Got myself a job at a men's clothing shop, Hart Schaffner and Marks. Sit at the machine, shaking in your boots, scared of being fired. For talking, sneezing, looking at the foreman, cross-eyed.
Busy season, get up before dawn, come home in the dark. The children's faces you don't look on, except when they're sleeping. And in the slack season?
In the slack season, you're lucky if you work 20 hours a week and pick up a pay envelope for $1.87. In the slack season, the kids go hungry. And in the busy season...
Speed up. You can go crazy with the speed up, turning out more and more and more for the same money.
Just like this, all of a sudden, the foreman announces they're cutting the piece rate for seaming pants?
Lucy, you gonna just sit there and take it? Not me, I'm not taking it. I'm walking out. Sure, it's all right for them, a handful of girls. I got kids to feed.
They warned us. Walk out and you're blacklisted, finished in Chicago.
Why doesn't the union do something?
The so-called union, my boy, is strictly for the cutters, the aristocrats. They're not interested in greenhorns.
What am I doing in here, taking over their work? I ought to be out there with them.
What do we do?
I don't know what you're going to do. I know what I'm going to do. Out. I'm walking out.
Do you hear? Do you hear the latest?
3,000 out. 6 more shops out.
18,000.
35,000.
You hear? 40,000 out.
Out on the picket line, news travels fast.
Heard a rumor the union's looking to make a deal under the table and sell us down the river.
They turned down the sellout, stayed out on the picket lines.
I'm as mild-mannered girl as can be, and I've never done them harm that I can see. Still on me they put a ban and they throw me in the can. They go wild, simply wild over me.
4 months of broken heads and empty stomachs. 4 months out in the freezing street. 4 months standing together, standing solid.
I see Charlie out there walking in the line. Up comes the foreman, gives him a punch and yells, "Go home, troublemaker." So Charlie says, "I got my rights." Rights they gave him. A bullet in the head they gave him.
Before it was over, there were 2 clothing workers lying dead. But the shots that murdered them also woke the conscience of Chicago. Prominent citizens began to announce their support of the strikers and even came to join the picket lines. Among them, Ellen Gates Starr, Earl Dean Howard of the Northwestern University, a young liberal attorney named Harold Ickes, and the leading social worker in the country, Hull House's Jane Addams.
How do you do, sir? My name is Jane Addams. I'm a social worker. I wonder, Mr. Schaffner, how long it's been since you saw with your own eyes the conditions under which these people work for you?
So I went down to my factory and I looked. And then I wasn't surprised they were on strike. I was only surprised they waited so long.
Something unique. Peaceful collective bargaining. A mutual will to understand and respect the interests of the other side. An experiment in human relations drawing on the talents and patience of remarkable men. Lawyer Clarence Darrow, churchman and social worker Dr. James Mullenbach, ex-coal miner and country editor John E. Williams.
Schaffner's willing to arbitrate grievances and wage demands.
What does Hillman say?
All we want is to be treated as human beings, not machines. Arbitration is the first step.
All right, so they got arbitration. They got a little security at Hart, Schaffner, and Marx.
It still leaves the rest of us right back where we started.
You think this is the end? Take it from me, this is only the beginning.
Something in the wind blowing east from Chicago. A restless murmur running through the shops. Something being born. A beginning. A hope. New York, 1912, heart of the men's clothing market. 60,000 vest makers and buttonhole makers, pressers and pants makers, cutters and tailors, slapped in jail by the police, bailed out by a tough little labor lawyer named Fiorello LaGuardia.
You hear? We got a settlement. A 53-hour week.
A big present they gave us. Ice in the winter.
Listen, whatever you get, you have to fight for it. If I am wrong, if my information is mistaken, please correct me, which I will appreciate. Thank you.
Something in the wind. Something struggling to be born. Baltimore. Strike and sellout. Rochester. Sellout and heartbreak. Police breaking up the picket lines, leaving the streets littered with hurt and wounded. And one worker, 18-year-old Ida Brayman, shot to death.
The union's having a convention, Nashville, Tennessee.
Why Nashville? The biggest locals are New York, Chicago, Baltimore.
That's the reason. We've got complaints, so they're making it tough for us to get out there.
So why Nashville? Why not Alaska?
Beg, borrow, somehow scrape together the money for train fare.
Nashville! All out for Nashville!
Locals from New York, Boston, Rochester, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, and Baltimore are delinquent in dues and will not be seated.
We were out on strike. We didn't have to eat, so how can we pay dues?
Observers in the balcony have no right to speak.
Baltimore's still out on strike.
Brother in the balcony is out of order.
Chicago insists that the brother in the balcony be heard.
Delegate from Chicago is out of order.
Listen, word just came in from Nashville. Chicago walked out of the convention. Yeah, and New York and Baltimore.
Boston, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati.
75% of the membership walked out.
Oh, really? What does it mean? Holding their own convention.
Yeah, we're setting up our own union.
October 14th, 1914. By Western Union from Nashville, Tennessee to Sidney Hillman, New York City. You must accept presidency. We are the majority, so decide and wire at once.
It'll be an outlaw outfit. Won't even be an air for Vel. Sidney, you're out of your mind, staking your head on a wild gamble.
In the month of December 1914, clothing worker delegates gathered in convention at Webster Hall in New York City and took the gamble. They formed a new union, the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America. First president of the Amalgamated, Sidney Hillman.
It was our dream to give security to our members. Security within the framework of liberty, of individual freedom. Lincoln said, "A nation cannot exist half slave and half free. Neither can a man. We cannot exist free politically, but slaves industrially."
First order of business, to settle the Baltimore strike, then begin to organize.
Dear brother, we just formed an organizing committee for the Amalgamated clothing workers out here in Milwaukee. 2 French buttonhole makers, 3 Jewish cutters, a Serbian, a Bohemian, 2 Italian pants makers, a Lithuanian girl, 2 Poles, a Swede, and a Hungarian.
Starting with nothing, with empty pockets and a barrel of hope. Organizing New York and Chicago, Wisconsin and New Jersey, Baltimore and Boston, Kentucky, Missouri, Ohio, Montreal, Toronto, Pennsylvania.
Dear brother Hillman, maybe you can come to our assistance. We had a little strike down here in Philadelphia. Our business agent got thrown in jail. I haven't got to buy postage stamps, much less pay the fine. Worst comes to worst, don't worry. I'll hock my overcoat.
The groping beginnings of collective bargaining, hacking a road through the wilderness, opening a new frontier, bringing order to a chaotic industry.
Listen, I'm a boss, so don't quote me. Tell you the God's truth, the union is the best thing ever happened in this industry. You've got arbitration, you can come together like human beings, set standards, set rates, in a civilized manner, you know what I mean? Since we went union, we never had a strike.
1914, Woodrow Wilson's New Freedom, a Utility Control Act, a Corrupt Political Practices Act, a Federal Trade Commission to stop unfair competition, a strict antitrust law, workmen's compensation law, a law to forbid the labor of children under 14. 1914, the Imperial German Army pouring over the borders of Belgium in a gray flood. Memo from Kaiser Wilhelm to the German Admiralty. Now, once and for all, an end to negotiations with America. Immigrants and the sons of immigrants, fishermen from Nantucket, factory hands from the Lower East Side, farm boys from Arkansas.
Goodbye, Ma, goodbye, Pa, goodbye, mule with the old hee-haw. I may not know what the war's about, but I bet by gosh I'll soon find out. I'll bring you a Hun and a Kaiser too, and that's about all one feller can do. I may not know what the war's about, but I bet by gosh I'll soon find out. Oh, my darling, don't you fear, I'll bring you a gun for a souvenir.
U.S. Army, dead and missing, 130,500. Wounded, 234,300. U.S. Steel, profits $2 billion. In the backwash of war, depression, and a rising hysteria, self-appointed vigilantes hunting out so-called radicals, Ku Klux Klan crosses blazing in the night. In a single year, 61 murders by lynching. Revolution in Russia touching off panic at home. The Palmer raids. The U.S. Attorney General opening a reign of terror. The victims, mostly immigrants. Their houses ransacked without search warrants. Dragged off, questioned, locked up in cages like animals. 3,000 foreign-born arrested, denied lawyers, held without charges for 3 months. To the big corporations, it seemed the perfect time to turn back the clock. Break the unions. 1919. 4 million American workers striking for the right to belong to unions, with the courage to demand decent pay and human conditions. In the steel company towns, it was a 12-hour day. Take it or leave it, and you'd better take it if you know what's good for you.
Tell me, what is a vigilante man? What is a vigilante man? Does he carry a club and a gun in his hand? Would he beat your brother and sister down?
Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America to AFL. Enclosed, find our contribution, $100,000 for the relief of the steel strikers. We know that this is only the beginning of one of the greatest attacks ever directed against American labor.
(1920). A clothing worker could look around and see signs of progress.
In 6 short years, we built ourselves one of the strongest unions in the country.
In New York, the 44-hour week and a working machinery of arbitration.
So the employers decide it's time to wreck the union. Come up with a plan to set back the clock, bring back the sweatshop. And when we turned it down...
Lockout. They got it all figured. Shut down the machines, lock the doors, get a court injunction against picketing, sit back and starve us out.
From Amalgamated Sidney Hillman came the answer.
While the employers may succeed in getting injunctions, they succeed in nothing else. As long as they think they can ship customers injunctions instead of pens, let them go ahead.
Hang on, sit tight and hang on. If we crack, it means the end of the union. They open shop again, the 7-day week and the 12-hour day. Starvation, slums, crime, everything that is rotten, everything that is inhuman. Your organization must ask great sacrifices. We ask you to walk instead of spending a nickel car fare. Your lives depend on it. Your future, the future of your children. We will take care that there is not a single house without bread. We won't give you meat, but your brothers and sisters in Chicago, Rochester, and Baltimore won't let you starve.
The union was determined not to just lose the days letting its members walk the streets. Set up food commissaries and free medical clinics. Arrange for entertainment and workers' education.
We volunteered to go down there and arrange entertainment. I don't believe the world has such children anywhere as the East Side children. They took our modest program and transformed it with their magic. I sat there thinking, oh, what if the business of society were making children like this instead of profits?
And we hung on for 6 long months. And we won.
Saved the 44-hour week and the union shop and the grievance board. Saved the Amalgamated. The 20s.
A chicken in every pot and a Tin Lizzie in every garage.
Keep cool with Coolidge.
Cancel the child labor laws.
In the White House the other day now, what did Calvin Coolidge say? Bo-do-de-o, bo-do-do-de-o-do. And Patrick Henry made a speech, a famous speech, when he told them, liberty or black bottom, crazy words, crazy tune, all that Cal could croon and spoon was bo-do-de-o, bo-do-do-de-o-do.
Believe you me, the 20s isn't all vodo-de-o-do. For a clothing worker, it's still a seasonal business. Layoffs, unemployment, behind with the rent, payments due on the radio. Go to the bank for a loan, they ask you for security. Listen, if I had security, I wouldn't be there in the first place. My hands are my security.
Our lives shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses.
The Amalgamated pioneering slum clearance. Putting up the first cooperative low-rent houses. Founding a bank where a working man can get a loan on the security of his labor. Setting up the only unemployment insurance program in the nation. And that was also the 20s.
Up, boys, the sky's the limit.
AT&T 303. U.S. Steel 255.
23 Skidoo. I love my wife, but oh, you kid.
U.S. Steel 313.
Hey, what's wrong with the market?
U.S. Steel, 300. U.S. Steel, 152. U.S. Steel, 60.
Who cares if the sky cares to fall in the sea? Who cares what banks fail in Yonkers, long as you've got a kiss that conquers?
President Hoover assured reporters today that, quote, the fundamental business of the country is on a sound and prosperous basis. The Secretary of the Treasury announced, quote, I can guarantee that there is nothing in the situation to be concerned about.
It's a mighty hard road that these poor hands have hold. My poor feet has traveled a hot, dusty road. At the edge of your cities you will see us, and then we come with the dust and we're gone with the wind.
Fed up with being unemployed. Tired of being hungry. 20,000 doughboys went down to Washington to demand the veterans bonus we had coming to us. Herbert Hoover sicked the army on us. Chased us out of the Capitol.
Let me tell you, mister, we ain't taking it no more. There's gonna be some changes made.
California came here to nominate a president. California, 44 votes for Roosevelt.
There is a mysterious cycle in human events. To some generations, much is given. Of other generations, much is expected. This generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny.
River of social legislation. The CCC and the WPA bringing jobs to 9 million unemployed. Fair labor standards law setting minimum wages and maximum hours. Child labor laws passed again. The TVA bringing light to the dark valleys. The Social Security Act, partially inspired by the Amalgamated pattern, providing unemployment and old age insurance. The Wagner Labor Relations Act.
Employees shall have the right to bargain collectively through representatives of their own choosing.
The right to join a union. Millions upon millions of American workers still unorganized.
And until you organize and express yourself, the politicians will vote for a bill in Congress that lengthens the working hours, that puts in a starvation period, and abolishes the prevailing wage. That's what the politicians will do unless you make your wants and your rights known. And you can't do it unless you organize. The workers of this country want representation. They want organization. They want participation. They want protection. They want employment. And they're going to have those things through the leadership and the instrumentality of this new labor movement that you're forging.
Instead of 1,000 craft unions segregating the workers, the CIO meant one big union for every major industry. Organize the unorganized. Puddlers and furnace men in the steel mills. Deckhands, stokers, oilers aboard the merchant ships. Roustabouts and riggers in the oil fields. Zinc miners, lead miners, copper miners. Rubber workers. Electrical workers. The Amalgamated organizing cotton garment workers in Pennsylvania, New England, and the Prairie States. Organizing laundry workers, cleaners and dyers, retail clerks. Providing the manpower and the money to organize a textile workers' union.
Now, if you want higher wages, let me tell you what to do. You got to talk to the workers in the shop with you. You got to build you a union, got to make it strong. But if you all stick together, boys, it won't be long. You get shorter hours, better working conditions, vacations with pay, take your kids to the seashore. Now, you know you're underpaid, but the boss says you ain't. He speeds up the work till you're about to faint. You may be down and out, but you ain't beaten. You can pass out a leaflet and call a meeting, talk it over.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
My daddy was a miner and I'm a miner's son, and I'll stick with the union till this old fight is won.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Chicago, Memorial Day Sunday, 1937. A peaceful meeting of Republic steelworkers. After the meeting, an impromptu parade across the green fields of stubble grass. Close study of newsreel films reveals the following. A vivid close-up shows the head of the parade being halted by a group of 150 policemen. The flag bearers are in front. Suddenly, without apparent warning, there was a terrific roar of pistol shots, and the men in the front ranks of the marchers go down like grass before a scythe. As many as a dozen in one heap. 600 arrested. 60 sent to the hospital. 30 bleeding from gunshot wounds, including 1 woman and 3 children. 10 dead, shot in the back. Flint, Michigan, 1937. What's happening at General Motors isn't just an ordinary strike. It's what they call a sit-down. Shut down the assembly line and stay in the plant. Eat there. Sleep there. Organize it all carefully. Protect company property, man the soup kitchen, sweep the floors, get supplies handed in through the windows, just plant yourself there and sit tight.
When they tie a can to a union man,
sit down, sit down.
When they give him the sack, they'll take him back.
Sit down, sit down, sit down, just take a seat. Sit down and the rest is deep. Sit down, you gotta be. Sit down, sit down.
When they smile and say no raising pay,
sit down, sit down.
When you want the boss to come across,
sit down, sit down, sit down, just take a seat. Sit down and the rest is deep. Sit down, you gotta be. Sit down, sit down.
We sat down in the auto plants for 44 days, and we came out with a union contract.
In the men's clothing field, victory. Industry-wide collective bargaining bringing order out of chaos. Auto organized, CIO. Steel organized, textile organized. Rubber, oil, copper, merchant marine, furniture workers, glass workers, leather workers, packing house workers, and wood workers.
This land is your land, this land is my land. New California, this is your land.
In 3 years, 5 million Americans organized, CIO.
This land was made for you and me.
1938.
Forget your troubles and just get happy. You better chase all your cares away. Sing hallelujah, come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day. The sun is shining, come on, get happy. The Lord is waiting to take your hand. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. We're going to the promised land. We're heading across the river, wash your sins away in the tide. It's all so peaceful on the other side. Forget your troubles and just get happy. You better chase all your cares away. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day.
Berlin. Chancellor Adolf Hitler told reporters today that aside from rightful claims to Austria and Czechoslovakia, Germany has no territorial ambitions. He claimed that all accusations to the contrary are fabrications circulated by an international Jewish conspiracy.
Poland, 1939. Out of the clear sky, a rain of Stukas, machine gun fire lacing the country roads, panzers rumbling across the defenseless border, regiments in jackboots goose-stepping behind the swastika down the avenues of Warsaw. The blueprints are drawn for the concentration camp and the gas chamber. The death sentences of the innocent are signed and sealed. All Europe is a shooting gallery, and one by one the tin ducks go down. Poland, Denmark, Norway, Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Yugoslavia, Greece, December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor, a present from Tokyo. In the African hills, on the bleak islands of the Pacific, we got the message the days when the United States could sit isolated behind its oceans were ended forever. The message written in fire that from now on, for better or for worse, it was one world. The battle line ran from the Philippines to Iwo Jima, from Anzio to Normandy. From El Alamein to Stalingrad. The battle line ran through Pittsburgh and Detroit and Norfolk and San Francisco. Labor manning the shipyards and the aircraft factories, the steel mills and the copper mines. Jeeps and half-tracks and B-17 bombers pouring off the assembly lines. And yet, in the midst of war, in the 1942 elections, only a third of America's 80 million eligible voters went to the polls. In the 1944 presidential election, 3/4 of America's eligible voters registered, more than ever before in history, and they swept Franklin D. Roosevelt into office again. The White House. Dear Sidney, one thing I want to make perfectly clear to you, Sidney, is my appreciation. It was a great campaign, and nobody knows better than I do how much you contributed to its success. I was glad to learn that the CIO in Chicago authorized the continuation of the PAC. I can think of nothing more important in the years to come than the continuing political education and political energy of the people who do the jobs in this land. Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
It is our duty now to begin to lay the plans and determine the strategy for winning a lasting peace and the establishment of an American standard of living higher than ever known before.
The man dies, but the dream endures.
We have accepted, so to speak, a second Bill of Rights, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station or race or creed. The right to earn enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation. The right to adequate protection from the economic fears of old age and sickness and accident and unemployment. Finally, the right to a good education. All of these rights spell security.
The clock ticks away the inexorable hours. Over the horizon, the days vanish like wild birds. The sky announces a new season. Pinned upon the drawing board are plans for the destruction of pianos and violets. Lightning flashes among the constellations, and yet the human spark burns on. Thunder rolls above the clouds, and yet the small, persistent voice of man prevails.
You know, I can go back to a time with my pop, may rest in peace. You know, we worked together, and he broke me in. We used to work next to each other, and he was a strict man. And when he was out a day, just one day, there was no pay. And when he had no pay, there was no food in the house. Because we always ate from the buttonholes, from the clothing line. At that time, a boss was able to walk over the machine, tear off the cotton, and kick you out, and that was it. You had no standard of conditions, you had no standard of garments, you had no standard of labor. It was a dog-eat-dog. And benefits, we had none.
Today, as long as I stay in the Amalgamated, I've got my benefits. I can move to any union shop in the country, New York, Ohio, or Oskaloosa. Keep my medical care, keep my pension.
Whoever thought that this trade would have 3 weeks vacation? Whoever thought we'd have legal holidays? Whoever thought we'd see a business agent can walk into a shop and tell a boss, you can't fire this man because he's old or because he's sick. You've got to keep him. Those things you didn't see years ago. And whoever thought in this trade when a man reached 65, he could retire, because never did we think that we see it in this trade. A man used to work until he dropped by the machine, and after he dropped, he had to hope his family would support him. I can remember when a man got sick, he was broke. Today, we've got the union hospitalization on x-rays, psychiatric, right down the line. You know, today I come into a shop and I look around and I see the younger people, girls and boys, and I say to myself, do these people know what we fought for? Do they know how hard it was to get the conditions we've got? Do they know what a union actually means? Do they know what they have to go through to keep the conditions they have? Do they know that they must sacrifice to keep the conditions? They call each other brothers and sisters at a union meeting. Do they know that a union brother and a union sister means sacrifice?
If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out a warning.
Organize the unorganized. It's not just a slogan of the 30s. It's happening now. In 100 towns across Mississippi and New Mexico, Georgia and Alabama.
The biggest thing we have to sell the workers in the South on through our union is dignity. But the thing that's most important to them down there is dignity. The right to stand up and grieve. The right to know that they can take a stand when they're mistreated in the shop. If you go into a town that's anti-union, we try to make contact as quietly as possible. Many times we refuse lodging accommodations in motels and hotels. We do get into a place sometime, many of our phone calls are monitored. Myself have been in front of a plant in the southern community, and city officials, police and sheriff groups chase us away from the plant, taken out of a car, rope around my neck, pulled up on my tiptoes and told, if you ever come back here again, we'll kill you. Many times a worker will say, I'm for you, I'm going to vote for you, I'll sign a union card, but don't park your car close to our house because the boss will know we've been to see you and I may get fired tomorrow. It takes a lot of courage for a worker to sign a union card, but the workers have got courage, a lot of them have.
Courage rises in the American air like hickory smoke. Negro sharecroppers registering at the polls in Mississippi and Louisiana. Negro school kids running the gauntlet of rocks and insults in Georgia and Virginia. Past the state troopers and the county deputies, past the shotguns and the dogs and the fire hoses.
I'd hammer out freedom, I'd hammer out justice, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land.
As it is, they say we're not ready. That's the first thing you hear. He's not ready for it. How can I give him something he's not ready for? But I am ready. I have been ready. But maybe you don't recognize it. Maybe you think I'm still a child or something. I'm not a child. I'm grown. I have children. And I'm worrying about them like you're worrying about yours.
You got to work for it, fight for it, day and night for and every generation's got to win it again.
Take your kid out on a quiet Sunday and walk through the park. Climb the path under the maple trees. A million thoughts going through your head.
Sometimes I get thinking, if only I could protect her from all the troubles in this world. Discrimination, poverty, war. But the best I can do is let her learn to be strong, to stand up and fight for a decent life. That's her inheritance.
The seed is planted and the seed flowers. The roots take hold. The stubborn tree forces its way through the rock. Immigrants and the sons of immigrants handing down their inheritance. Creating out of their dreams and their anguish and their songs the face of America.
You think this is the end? Take it from me, this is only the beginning.